Hey everyone, welcome to another video. This week we're going to be looking at various tools which you can use to clone out unwanted elements in your photography. So the weather's been pretty bad this week and I've not done an editing video for a little while now, so I thought it was about time that I did something in software. So we're going to be looking at Photoshop and Lightroom today and how you can use various tools to clone out or remove unwanted objects that might be in your photography. So first of all, why would you want to remove objects in your photography? Well, there are a few reasons. One is that you might have a technical error. There might be something on your lens, some dust or a drop of water or something, and you might just need to remove that afterwards to improve your image. The second one might be a compositional error. You might have a woodland scene, for example, and you might have a branch really close to the camera just coming in from one side which you didn't notice at the time. And again, a bit of cloning, removing that branch might just really improve your image. And then you've got other things like you might have an unwanted object in the middle of your scene, so you might have been taking a really nice vista, but you didn't notice some litter that someone had left there annoyingly. And again, just getting rid of that can really improve the scene. And the same with people as well. You might have a person who's wandered into the scene, but for this particular image, you don't want to have people in it. And it can be really nice just to clone them out and really improve your scene again. Okay, so first of all we'll take a look at the spot removal tool. This is a really handy tool for removing any kinds of spots or specks in your image, and it's featured directly within Lightroom, so no need to go into Photoshop for this one. If we take a look at this image here, this is at Mamto, and this is the final image, but if we have a look at the original, you'll see we've got this really nasty spot up here, which was actually a bit of dust or something on my sensor which I didn't know about at the time. So we're going to use the spot removal tool, like I said, which is featured just here. We'll click on that. That brings up this little panel and we've got 3 parameters we can change. So first of all we're going to need to change the size. My brush is too large at the moment, so we can just bring that up. And you can also use the bracket keys on your keyboard, so the square brackets just to the left of your return key. The right bracket will make your brush bigger and the left will make it smaller, so that's just a quick way of doing it. And feathering will just soften or harden the edge of your brush, so if you want a really solid, crisp, sharp edge around your brush, then put your feathering on 0, and if you want a really soft edge which will blur and blend in with the surroundings, then put that number higher, all the way up to 100 if you like, but I'm going to go somewhere around about 40. And opacity will just set how see-through your patch is, so you might want to just blend in a little bit more seamlessly with the background, and therefore you might just lower the opacity just a bit just to help that blend in. But I want it to be a full patch that just completely covers up that dusty, spotty area. So I'm going to put my opacity on 100 and I'll just paint over that area like that. And Lightroom automatically samples an area and covers it up. If we just click close, we'll see that's done a pretty good job, you can't really tell. Sometimes it won't work as well as that. I'm sampling from a really flat area of sky there and it blends in quite well. If you've got a more complex image, it might not work as well, and then you might need to look at one of the other tools that we're going to talk about. Okay, so this one was taken at Padley Gorge. Really like this image, but when I first took this, I noticed that it had this blade of grass or twig or whatever it is down here on the rock to the left, and that's a bit distracting. Ideally we want the viewer to be looking at the nice waterfall or the yellow tree here, and not at this distracting piece of grass. So I'm going to remove that, but I think I need something a little bit more powerful than the spot removal tool. So what I'm going to do is bring that into Photoshop. And you can do that by pressing Command and E or Control and E on your keyboard. And it'll bring it into Photoshop just like that. And now we can use the clone stamp, which is here, about halfway down your tool palette on the left. Or you can press S on your keyboard to bring that up quickly. Just zoom in on our affected area. I'm going to make a new layer above my background layer. And again, we can change the size of our brush using the square bracket keys to the left of the return key on your keyboard. And we can press Shift and the bracket keys to make our brush more or less feathered. And what I want to do is just press Alt on my keyboard and select an area that I want to clone. So I'm going to clone this area just to the right, let go of my Alt key, and now I can start painting that area over the blade of grass. And what I'm looking to do is find areas with defined lines. So you see here, we've got this kind of ridge where the darker greyish black area meets the green. What I want to do is continue that line up and over my straw, or the blade of grass or whatever it is. So I'll select that using Alt and click on that area there, and then I can just paint that across, and it just paints that line across the piece of grass, and it helps to make it look more plausible by continuing that line. And we can keep doing that all the way down. Bring this area across. I'm going to start making my brush smaller now because I don't want to cover up the leaf there. And I'll just keep painting it in, and there we go. So if I just hide that layer, you'll see how that looks. So it's a really powerful tool, and it can be quite quick. Okay, we're already in Photoshop, and we're going to be looking at the healing brush tool now. So you can find the healing brush tool about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items down in your tool palette. If you don't see it immediately, you can just click and hold on that. You'll get this little contextual menu, and you can select it from inside of there. So this tool works in a similar way to the clone stamp tool, but what it does is just a little bit different. And I can demonstrate that by just using the clone stamp first and showing you how it will work on this little blemish here. So what I'm going to do is, this is with the clone stamp tool, like I said, I'm going to sample this area down here, and I'm going to paint that onto the blemish. And you'll see that doesn't look quite right because the colour of the area we've sampled from is too dark. It's actually created a bigger blemish, so that's no good. What I'm going to do instead is use the healing brush tool. I'm going to sample the same area and then paint that onto the blemish, and you'll see that blends in much better because what's happening there, it's taking the texture from this area but applying the colour from this area, and that helps it to really blend. Right then, let's take a look at this foggy woodland shot, and we're going to use the patch tool on this one. So you can find the patch tool under the same contextual menu as the healing brush tool. So just pop that out and then select patch tool. And what I want to get rid of is this little branch here that's sticking out from the edge. I think these ones are okay. Here at the top they help frame the image, and these ones are not too bad, they're okay, but this one just seems a little bit isolated and just causing a little bit of a distraction there. So I'm just going to zoom in on that, and all I'm going to do is use the patch tool and just draw around the offending branch. And then all you need to do is click on that selected area, click and hold, and then drag it down or to an area where you want to sample from. So from there, and then Photoshop will automatically blend that in for you. So it's really quick, and when you've got an area that's quite busy, like we've got here, it tends to blend in quite well. It works pretty well for woodland areas and where there's lots of crossing branches and foliage and things. So if you zoom in on that, you might be able to tell, but to be honest, I can't even tell where it is now. If I undo that, it was just there. So it is a pretty powerful tool, and it is pretty good at blending it into your surrounding area. Okay, so finally we're going to look at the content aware fill feature in Photoshop. If we have a look at this image here, this was taken much more recently on a trip to Bolton Abbey, and I wanted to get these sheep quite central in the image, but the only way I could do that was by having these branches on the right hand side. And I don't mind the branches too much in how they look, but the image is a little bit unbalanced because there's nothing on the left hand side. So what I want to do is just remove those branches. So I've just got clouds there and the image looks nice and symmetrical and balanced. Now I could try to get rid of those using the patch tool like we did in the last image. If I just quickly go around that area there. The problem I've got though is that this is such a large area, I'm going to struggle to find a good spot to sample from. There is about the best area probably. If I let go there, we'll see that we've got a strange defined area here, and going in even further, we'll see that the top of one of the sheep has been cloned there, and a little bit of the tree stumps and the grass. So that's just not going to work. I'll just undo that. What I'm going to do instead is just use the lasso tool, which you can find the third item down here on your tool palette, and I'm just going to trace around my area that I want to remove, so in this case all the branches, and I'm just doing this quite quickly to demonstrate, but I would normally take a bit more time with this. And then all I need to do once that's selected is go up to Edit, Content Aware Fill, and we should get this window pop up, and we can see here the preview of what it's going to look like, and that's already done a really good job. I don't really need to do anything else, to be honest with that. I can just click OK and it's done. But what you might find with some images when you try this is that the area that you're trying to cover up, it might sample from an area of your image and clone strange items in. So here you might see like sheep's heads appear or something like that. And the way you can try and help control that is on the left here, you'll see we've got a green overlay, and that green overlay, every area that that is covering is an area that will be considered for sampling to cover up your area that you want to get rid of. So if I, for example, was getting sheep's heads in this area here, I can just click here and rub out the green on the sheep, and that would tell Photoshop not to use that area to cover up my affected area, in this case the branches. And if you make a mistake, you can just press Alt on your keyboard and you can start painting the green back in. But I'm happy with that, and I'm going to click OK, and it will automatically create a new layer down here in the bottom right. So it's non-destructive. If we hide that layer, you can see what it used to look like and what it looks like now, and it's very convincing, very powerful tool, very clever. It's quite a new feature, so depending on your version of Photoshop, you may or may not have this, but if you've got one of the more recent versions of Photoshop, you will have that, and yeah, it's a really, really useful tool, so make use of that when you can. Alright, I hope you found that useful. It can be really helpful to remove unwanted elements from your images. It can really help lift your photography and just give it that little bit of extra polish that it might need. I've been using Photoshop and Lightroom, but there are lots of alternatives out there. A lot of them are free, and you might find that a lot of the tools I've shown you today, there are similar equivalents in your software. So that's it for this one. I'm not always doing this kind of thing. I'm often out and about. This weekend I'm going to be in Wales, so if you're watching this video on the Sunday that it's published, I'll actually be there. The weather's not looking great, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get out in between the rain and capture some of the amazing scenery that Wales has to offer. So if you're new to the channel and you like that kind of thing, then please consider subscribing. You can click down here on the big red button or on my face over here, and that way you'll keep up to date with what I'm doing every week. And there's going to be all kinds of stuff like wildlife, outdoor, landscape, macro, bit of everything. So yeah, join me for that. But like I said, that's it for this one. So thanks a lot everyone, and I hope you'll catch me next week. Bye for now.